What are we doing in the black community? The number one consumer of a Mercedes-Benz
It's us.
us. The number one consumer of a Gucci and a Louis Vuitton, us. And they don't even advertise. Why is it that in the black community, we are always the number one consumer, but we're not the number one creators?
So you just said it. The fact that there's consumers and creators. For so long, we assume success based on consumption.
Welcome to Closing the Gap Podcast, Truth About Black Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and the founder and president of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. So we are grateful to be here with you on another day, especially being able to come to you on the radio at V94.9. Then also you can catch us on YouTube and all of your podcast outlets, wherever you get your podcast from, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever that is. Just look for us, Closing the Gap Podcast, and on YouTube, check us out at Closing the Gap Podcast, The Truth. And we ask that you like, share, subscribe, and let us know that you're listening. Let us know that you tuned in to us, all right? So today, Wilbert, we want to jump in, man, and talk to the people about finances. We had see a lot going on in the news, and all of these things affect us, and it affects your business. And I'm sure you've been receiving some calls about some of the things that have been going on where new administration in the White House has been making some radical shifts, to say the least, with prospective buyouts, this Doge, and getting rid of certain entities within the government. And I know that that's affecting some of your clients and potential clients, and also many of our listeners may be working with some federal jobs. And if they are not, their family members may be. So today we want you to talk to the people about having financial planning. And then we'll go into how the government has kind of been affecting them. So, but first, can you explain to us from your vantage point, what is a financial plan?
Well, like I say, first of all, like we said earlier in a few of the shows beginning of the year, we got to write it down and make a plan.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we all got to make our plans for 2025, and we want to stick to them. And of course, some of us had our health plans, and and we got to have a wealth plan. And they go hand in hand. You can't enjoy the wealth without the health. And as great as your health is, you're gonna need some wealth to enjoy that too. So we want to make sure we honor those kind of one and the same. But the biggest thing in helping to understand and tell people what a financial plan is, it's a guide and a roadmap. Before we get up and go wherever we're going in the morning, usually I plug that address into my GPS to see what's gonna be the best route to get me to the office in the morning. There's usually 3 different routes I can take. And the GPS always gives me those 3 because it gives me the one with the shortest distance.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to give me the one that bypasses the most traffic.
Okay.
And it's going to give me the one that's also gives me the shortest duration of time period in order to get there. And a financial plan is just that. It's a roadmap on how to get you from point A to point B the safest, most effective, and quickest way possible with the least amount of bumps in the road. Okay. It's not an end-all, be-all. Financial plans do evolve and change because life evolves and changes. But what it does is it creates a foundation and a guide that says, okay, if I do this, the results will be that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know I have the right insurance plan, and I know if I have the right investments going into my 401k, the right mix, I'm putting in the right amount, I'm saving the right amount in my outside Roth IRA or my outside brokerage account, and I'm investing $200 a month, and I'm putting $300 a month into my 401k at work, and I'm getting a matching contribution. At the end of the day, over the course of 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I will be in a position where my lifestyle will not change or decrease when I move into retirement. And that's always the goal. Nobody works, for 20, 30 years to get to the golden years of life when they take a step back and want to enjoy kids and grandkids even more, to all of a sudden have a decrease in lifestyle. We want to make sure that we have worst case scenario, maintain our lifestyle. And the only way to properly do that is to plan for it. So we got to know, look, let's put ourselves in a situation where, first and foremost, we've planned because we've protected, saving, and now we've grown. We've invested, and now we put ourselves in a situation where we have a plan that goes along with a what, where, when, and how, so we can enjoy the fruits of our labor at some point in time down the road.
Okay. So financial plan is a guide and a roadmap to
Absolutely.
where we want to get to. So in that, when we have a financial plan, I know they have retirement plans, investment plans. Could you tell us more about or explain to us what's the difference between a retirement and an investment plan?
You know, that's a great question, and not a lot of people ask because most people say, "Well, I'm investing my money," or "I got a 401k." Well, just because you have it don't mean you're utilizing it properly.
Okay.
You know, I always tell people when clients come in my office, I said, when we start putting together a retirement plan and a financial plan, I said, look, retirement and investment are two different things. Retirement is what I need to maintain my standard of living for the rest of my life once I decide to take a step away from work. Investment is what I got left over after I've secured my retirement. Now, for most people, they put both of those eggs in one basket and they kind of mix and they commingle. And that's why when the market takes a precipitous drop, or we have a 2008 type year, or we have a flash crash like we had in COVID, it totally disrupts their retirement. So all of a sudden, if you lose 30% in one particular point in time and you plan on retiring this year, next year, can you live on a 30% reduction in your retirement dollars and assets? Probably not. So those things have to be managed completely differently. Retirement and maintaining my standard of living, that can't change because guess what? If my retirement investments, my retirement account drops, my bills don't drop with it. My bills stay the same. So we got to make sure that the financial plan that we have to maintain retirement is you want some guarantees, you want some protection, you want to make sure that you have a certainty around what you're going to have coming in and month out. Now, once you've secured that and you have additional funds coming in, now that's what we can invest in. That where we can take a lot more calculated risk. Now, I don't want people to confuse the fact of me saying retirement and investments as if inside of the retirement plan, we won't be invested in the stock market. We will have, obviously, assets that are invested in the market, but the way we look and manage those assets may be completely different from the way we manage assets that are outside of our retirement plan. See, I can take a lot more risk when it doesn't affect my lifestyle. But I always ask people, say, look, if you lose this bucket of money right here and you can't afford to pay your mortgage in retirement, you can't afford to pay your car note, you can't afford to pay your tithes, you can't afford to, pay for food and groceries and light bill and insurance. If you can't afford to pay those things, can you afford to put it at risk? Mm-hmm. So knowing how much you can afford to risk inside of a retirement plan is key because most people are way too aggressive and way too risky inside of their retirement plan. The greatest thing that you can have to create success in any area of life is consistency. Consistently doing the right thing over a long period of time is what gives you success. So within a retirement plan, I tell clients, look, you got to look at it this way. If I'm playing baseball, the worst thing you can do is be up to the plate and strike out. Mm-hmm. Your job and goal is to get on base. We want singles, we want doubles, we want triples. Every now and then, the market will have a great year and we can hit a home run. Okay. But we're not up at the plate swinging for the fences with every at bat because then usually the people that are leading home runs also leading strikeouts. So now you create a lot of chaos and volatility within your retirement plan, which is why we want to deviate or separate the two. So if I have an investment plan and I've already secured my retirement, now within those investments that are outside of my retirement plan, I can afford to go up the bat and swing for the fences. I can take a different approach at how I'm looking to invest those assets and put those assets in a position where I can be a lot more risky with the goals and the anticipation of hopefully trying to hit a few grand slams.
Okay. So with that analogy of what type of hit do we need to have when it comes to my retirement plan or my investment plan, how do we know how aggressive to be and when within each plan?
Well,
when should I swing for the fences and when should I take
exactly? Well, that's why the conversation has to be had.
Okay.
And that's where the value of having a financial advisor is lost in our community. We don't know the role and responsibility of having a financial advisor. Me as a financial advisor, my job is to analyze your entire situation. And when I'm building that financial plan, that retirement plan, and now I know basically exactly how much you put into your 401k, how much you're saving outside of that. What does your pension look like? What is your anticipated Social Security benefits going to be? I can take all that information into account and I can put into a system and build you out a financial plan that'll factor in inflation, taxes, and everything else that goes into the financial planning process. And that tells me exactly how aggressive we need to be to meet this goal. Right. So when I take all of the information and I put it in, now I know, you know what, if we get a 6% return, that would generate enough revenue over the next 15, 20, 30 years, whatever your time frame is to retirement, to get you where you want to be. It may be an 8% return that's needed if we're dealing with a shorter window. It may be a 3% return if you're a person that lives within your means and you save more than you spend. Mm-hmm. So I can plug all this information into the system and it'll give us feedback that tells us exactly what we need to do to get us where we want to be. The problem is, unfortunately, in our community, enough of us haven't had that conversation with somebody to get that analysis run. Just like a lot of our males in the Black community, enough of us ain't been to the doctor. We need to get more checkups. We need to go and get those routine physical exams, but we're scared of what we may find if we were to go to the doctor. But it's a necessary evil not an evil, it's a necessary that needs to happen.
Good.
It's a necessary good that needs to happen that gives us the information and feedback on if we're off kilter a little bit, what do I need to do? When I go to the doctor, he checks my blood pressure, my cholesterol, my sugar levels, and all those things. He tells me, right, you know what? We need to lay off the sweets, eat a few more vegetables. We need to drink a little bit more water. We need to cut back on, the fried food and implement some more grilled and baked, into the diet. Well, it's the same thing with our finances. We have to understand it. And once we implement that, now it gives us the opportunity to actually have some success. And I think the biggest thing is we haven't seen that type of success. So we're somewhat oblivious to the rewards that can be given. I think if more of us sat down with a financial advisor, someone like myself, and just had an analysis done and had an overall review, because I've learned most people are doing more than enough to get where they want to be in life. It's just the money's not going into the right opportunities to maximize the results because they haven't done a tax assessment to see, you know what, you have a business, you're not taking advantage of all your deductions. Mm-hmm. Or, you have this 401k, but if you invested another $100 or $200 in that, you get more of the matching contribution back from your employer to put free money into your pocket. So, making sure that we're taking advantage of all of the things that's in front of us, and once we know better, hopefully we can do better.
Yeah. Okay, that's excellent. So my aggressiveness in my plan is just based on where I am personally.
Absolutely.
And meeting with a financial advisor like yourself will allow me to see where I am, what I need to do, and how I need to do it. And I also like what you said, that most of us we have what we need to get things done. But oftentimes we're looking too far outside of ourselves and what other people are doing. Absolutely. To the point that we can't really see where we are and how well we are already moving forward in what we have. And then even with some people and their employers working at various jobs, and especially like government companies, we'll just stay there for now, working at government places, they have certain things already laid out. But then you can have a new administration that comes in and that can disrupt it.
Absolutely.
So when we're looking at that, and we see that now, where we're getting a lot of layoffs, we're getting the potential of buyouts at these different places, how would you say, from your vantage point, as a financial advisor, what type of advice would you give to a person that's facing potential buyouts and things like that on their government job?
First and foremost, you got to call a financial advisor and you have a conversation. The worst mistake you can make is making a decision without having professional advice. It's kind of like if we had the ability to write our own prescriptions for medication. How well would that go if we could write our own prescriptions for medication? How many more people would overdose? How many people would not utilize it at all because they would have fear and be paralyzed because I don't know what to do and how much to do, so I do nothing at all. So, a fear of action creates more inaction than anything. So that's where if we had a plan, now we know what adjustments can be made and should be made along the way. But if we don't have one, now we're facing some opposition. We're facing different things that are coming at us and we're getting thrown into the fire. Before you react, I tell people, God is not the author of chaos. So the first thing you do is stop, say a prayer, ask God for guidance, and then seek a financial advisor. Seek having a conversation with more than one.
Okay.
You know, obviously they can call us and we're happy to have conversation, educate people, but call 2, call 3, go and investigate, do some research on your own and see who you feel comfortable with and find out who's giving you accurate and truthful information and advice. So once you seek that information and ask them for written plans, not just verbal confirmation, you want to have a written plan that goes along with, if you do this, you will get that. You know, once you have that, now you have a guide that says, okay, what you should do. The worst mistake people make is they make financial decisions not understanding the tax ramifications, not understanding the investment ramifications and what time value of money is. They get scared, so they pull out the market. I don't know how many, I can't tell you how many people I've heard from since Trump went into office that have told me, I'll put all my money out of the stock market out of fear of what Donald Trump is going to do. Or I've had, so many people that say, you know what, I'm putting all my money in the stock market because I know he's going to be good for business. I'm like, well, how do you know which one is accurate? Well, he's not going to be in office forever.
Right.
And why would you base your financial livelihood on one individual? He's shown a propensity to make rash decisions. He threw out a lot of stuff. His first 2 days in office signed a whole bunch of executive orders. How many of those things actually went into effect immediately? And how many of them were actually a smokescreen? So that's why having that conversation first and foremost before you take any action, and having that conversation saying and showing somebody what you have, what you're trying to do, what your goals, your dreams, and ambitions are, now they can help you make a decision and see you a path forward. So now you can see the forest through the trees.
That's excellent, man. So financial plan is having a guide, roadmap where you can be safe and effective in what you're trying to do. And then the difference between retirement and investment planning is basically guaranteeing a certain lifestyle, guaranteed income is what you want to look at for retirement. But then after you get that retirement plan set, then the money that you have left over, you place that money in investment so that you can have some management and mitigation strategies for your money and for the future as you move.
Yeah, we may not be as aggressive.
Okay.
So, we'll have some of that obviously inside the retirement plan. We'll take some calculated risk and obviously have money in the market, but all our eggs won't be in one basket. Diversification is key. And one of the greatest drivers of proper diversification and consistent returns in the stock market is actually asset allocation. Having the proper allocation of the assets is the number one driver of consistent returns in the stock market. So that's a little free game for you. We're going to give you here today.
So when we're looking at that, we're talking about the basis of personal analysis, knowing what your financial plan is. I like the analogy that you gave about doctor's prescriptions. And we've talked previously about seeking professionals and whatever it is that we do. But too many times we like to make our own determination. But it's a blessing that we don't have full access to prescription medicine.
Absolutely.
Because we would take and do anything that we want to do when we want to do it. And that too many times we do that with our finances as well. And that's why we're falling short in so many areas. And so what we want to encourage everybody is take the time, as Mr. Hamilton has said, come seek out the advice, get an analysis, get a checkup, and don't be afraid. We have to get rid of the fear in our society and in our community and as men and as women and as children. Get rid of the fear of actually examining who we are and what we have. Because most time we're afraid because we already know we're messing up and we don't want to be held accountable for our actions. But look, in this season that we're in right now in the current administration, we see that we're going to have to be more personally accountable for every single action that we take. And so we want to encourage you, get a financial plan, do both retirement and investment plans so that you can know how aggressive you need to be able to manage and mitigate what we have coming forward from the White House and other areas in our lives. So we'll see you right back after this commercial. Welcome back to Closing the Gap Podcast, Truth About Black Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner and founder of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. Thank you for tuning in with us on another day on this podcast here at V94.9 and on YouTube channel and everywhere else that you get your podcast streamed. We've been talking about finances, financial planning, retirement and investment planning today, and looking at our current administration in the White House and all the action that they've been taking when it comes to federal programs, when it comes to federal employees. And Mr. Hamilton, I know that you have received a lot of phone calls about people worried about what should they do in this type of season. And as I think about the things that have been coming down, I'm reminded of scripture, Isaiah chapter 10, where Isaiah says, "Woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees and write grievousness which they have prescribed, and turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless." And so when Isaiah is saying, woe to these types of actions that our president is making, woe to the people that are supporting these types of issues. And so as we try to help the people today and give them some encouragement in dealing with what's going on, what would you say about these government downsizing from your perspective and dealing with financial crisis and planning for the people?
Man, you know what? I mean, first thing I think about is you got to expect the unexpected. We've seen a lot that's happened, in our country. I would say over the last, 10, 15, 20 years, a lot of things that we thought couldn't happen have happened. To go back to the huge crash in 2008, where the stock market, nobody thought we would have another depression level crash. So we thought that was an anomaly. Having, COVID happen from out of nowhere, and the stock market had an abrupt drop. So if nothing else, it's taught us that we have to start taking some personal accountability for our future. We've seen what the administration is doing. We've seen their goals and objectives. We've seen the dismantling of whether it be DEI, or whether it be, critical race theory and what's being done to the education system, and taking certain, reading materials and books out of the classroom and out of the school system as a whole. So, we're seeing that. We have to start to be the change that we want to see. I can't blame somebody else if I don't have any savings when I'm the one spending all the money. I have to take some personal accountability to say, what am I going to do differently? And if I know tough times are ahead, it's my responsibility to plan for those tough times. I'm under the belief that, man and the husband, it should be four things: protect, provide, profit, and priest over his home. So that means that you have to plan and prepare. You got to pray. You got to, help to mitigate some of that risk. Now, that doesn't totally eliminate, obviously, a lot of, things from happening. Life is going to happen to all of us, and life is happening to all of us. But it's better if I'm prepared to handle some of the things. That don't mean it's not going to be tough. But if I've saved, if I've put away for a rainy day, if I've helped set up my financial plan, I had 3 to 6 month emergency reserves. If I've been saving into my 401k, if I've been saving into my investment account outside of the job and not spending all my extra money, doing too much drinking, doing too much gambling, indulging in too many habits or vices that would be detrimental to my financial livelihood, but even my life with Christ. All those things are usually tied together. Usually our greatest sins are our greatest vices. And those things hurt us the most financially. One thing is always connected to the other. I'm always reminded back to, spiritual father I have, Bishop Carter. He would tell me, he He said, I don't care how great you are and whatever you do for a living, if your character's not right, at some point in time, it's going to affect your business, which means it's going to affect your money. Now, we have a situation that's totally unique where we have a person sitting in the White House whose character is somewhat questionable and has some vices and some he has a history of acts that participate in things that are not Christ-like, so to speak. And if we know that, I always tell people you can look at the success of a company by the leadership. We don't have great leadership right now. So I should expect the things coming from that leadership to not be what's in the best interest of the people. So if I know that and I can see that, it's up to me to start making the necessary adjustments to hopefully try to create a barrier and a buffer for me and my family. Like if knowing tough times are ahead and I'm still spending too much at the mall, if I'm spending, too much on DoorDash and Uber Eats, when I know, it might be better if we go to the grocery store, try to find some good buys in the grocery store because prices have went up there as well. But trying to just mitigate and not paying that extra 25, 30% delivery fee. Go ahead and take the time out of my day and go to the grocery store myself, go to the restaurant and pick up that meal versus DoorDash instead of paying that extra $30 every time you order. I'm talking to myself right now, too. We all had to do better. Not just talking to the general public. We all have things that we can do better in our lives.
Self-check.
Absolutely, to put us in a better situation. So, first and foremost, it's just taking that accountability and really sticking to it and understanding that this time is not going to last forever. The sun is going to shine at some point in time, but right now we in, somewhat of a rainy season when it comes to the information that's being thrust upon us, and it can feel somewhat overwhelming, I think. I definitely believe our community feels attacked, and we should feel that way. But once attacked, what we have to do differently is how we're going to fight back. Mm-hmm. We have to have, a come to Jesus meeting with ourselves. And then we can come together and figure out what is the best way to fight back. We got a lot of initiatives going on. We talked about last show on, to boycott Target and not boycott Target. Right. Where do we get our goods and services from? Who do we support? Who we not support? Because everybody is, either for or against DEI. And obviously there's more people against it than there are for it. But regardless of whether DEI exists or not, our coming together is essential to our survival. We need to come together in more ways than one because the community and the family is the backbone of any success that we're going to have. Everything starts at home. Education starts at home. Financial literacy starts at home. Health starts at home. Everything starts in the home. So we have to do a better job, each one of us, of taking that personal accountability, seeing how we can make our home better, which leads to our kids being better, which leads to our families being better, which leads to our communities being a little bit better as well.
Yeah. So we're talking about mitigating risk in this time right now. We have the president, we have some of these things that he's doing, but it's up to us on how we handle it. And that word mitigation just means how can you make something less severe? How can you make it less painful? Sometimes you can take things all the way out. And sometimes you don't have that type of control to do that. But the way that, number one, that we can mitigate what's going on in our society, first and foremost, is remember who is in control of all things, and that's God. So we have to make sure that we submit ourselves to God each and every moment of the day, and in everything that we do and in everything that we say. Make sure that we are in constant contact with him. Take on that email server, constant contact, that we stay in contact with God through everything, in everything, and as everything comes about in our lives, make sure that we focus on him. And in doing that, we'll be reminded of what Ecclesiastes 1:9 says, that there's nothing new under the sun.
Absolutely.
As you stated earlier, that some people didn't think that a crash like what happened in 2008 could happen, but it did. right? And it wasn't the first time that it's happened. So when we have a financial plan, when we have our personal life plan, when we have, as we reminded you before, other episode about counting the costs on last episode, when we have these plans in place, then that's what helps us be able to mitigate. That's what helps us be able to make a pivot. No matter what comes up in our lives, we're able to move in a direction that we need to move because we already had something laid out. And so when you have something laid out, it's easier to make adjustments to that versus actually being in the middle of the fight, in the middle of the fire, and then trying to come up with a plan while you're getting hit. Because while you're getting hit, now it's hard to respond because I wasn't prepared
Now
for this long. Yeah, I'm dazed, I'm shook, you know what I'm saying? And I may have even hit the mat and I don't have anything to recall. And so that's why when we come on here, we want to, first of all, give you the word of God that you can recall that, and then also give you some pointers to recall in your financial planning to come and see Mr. Hamilton to get things in order. And so as we think about those things, we're talking about how things are moving in this current environment, right? I'm how could I say it? I'm wary. I'm wary of people getting weary.
You know what? I'm from a financial advisor hat on for a second.
Oh, go ahead.
So, because you just gave us a lot, and you gave us really one of the keys to success. And when we have that financial plan and we get rocked, and we take that lick, and we take that punch to the chin, or take that punch to the gut, that we go down for the count.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important to have a plan, because the plan is anticipating you getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
The plan knows you're gonna get hit.
Mm-hmm.
When we build a financial plan, I tell people I plan for the worst, and then we hope for the best. Unfortunately, far too many people are overly optimistic, and all they do is think about the best.
Yes.
Even financial advisors, unfortunately, all too often, too many financial advisors, they are so driven to talk how great the returns are always going to be, when in actuality, my job is to mitigate risk more than anything else. Because when the market is good, it's good for everybody.
Right.
But when it's bad for everybody, do it have to be bad for you?
Mm.
See, those are the questions and the conversations that are not had. So when I'm talking to an advisor or I'm talking to a client, the first question I ask them is, how much money can this person afford to lose?
Mm-hmm.
If I know a certain amount you can't afford to lose, it tells me how much I can afford to put at risk. So a lot of the mitigation strategies and things that are being taken are really not very effective because the plan wasn't built with the worst in mind. I got to build that plan from the ground up so I never have to start back over. So we should never have to relay the foundation. The foundation should never be rocked, regardless of what is thrown on top of it. But when the foundation is not built properly and is built on optimism instead of being built on guarantees, that's when the house crumbles. That's when it's like that house that's built on sand instead of being built on solid rock. So we have to do a better job, and that's why the people seeking multiple financial advisors, getting multiple opinions, getting the facts on how things actually work, making sure you're talking to a fiduciary, not just a broker looking to sell you, because there's opportunities out there where you could have stock market upside, but have no downside risk.
Mm-hmm.
The way we manage portfolios is I have private managers watching my clients' accounts all the time. The goal is to get you out of negative situations quicker.
Okay.
And not prolong the drop.
Mm-hmm.
But one way we do that is when we have the conversation in the beginning, I ask you how much you can afford to lose, and we build that financial plan. I know that, you know what, this client can afford to lose more than 12%, 15%, 20% without it actually affecting the overall plan. So I have triggers in place that tell me when the market gets to, if they have a 12% trigger, when the market gets to 10, we're already making an adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the market gets to 15, we're making an adjustment. So we're not waiting for things to happen. We want to be proactive versus reactive. I tell people all the time, if you're making a decision based on what you saw on TV, it's already too late. Your best bet is leave it alone. By the time you hear the information, it's too late. So all too often people want to invest based on what they're hearing a coworker say, what they're seeing on TV, the information that's coming in on the news. I got news for you. By the time you find out it's a great idea, it's too late. It's oversaturated. The money has already been made, so ain't no sense in you participating in that. And in reality, you should not be participating in it anyway because you don't know if it even fits with what you need to accomplish for your life because you have no plan.
Yeah.
You're going off of hope and a whim. See, we have way too many people investing in trying to be investors, and the whole goal is I'm just trying to make money. But we all trying to make money.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's trying to make money. But do you know how much money you need to make? See, having a plan also gives you a destination. See, when I invest and I know I need to accomplish the goal of having $500,000, for example, to be able to retire comfortably for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Well, if I've invested and I'm at 505, do I still keep investing the same way I was investing before, or do I need to change my approach? Well, if you don't know you've won the race, you keep doing exactly what you've been doing, and all of a sudden, a stock market crash happens, and all of a sudden you go from 505 back to 350. Now, the one thing we can't get back is the time. Because it took time for you to get to 505. Now it's going to take time for you to get back there. But the one thing that we don't know is how much time we got here. Our time is not God's time. So we have to make sure that we have a plan that tells us what to do, when to do, how to do, but most importantly, when we have won the race. But if you don't have a plan, you'll never know if you won the race.
Man. So knowing if you won the race is all determined by the plan. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, for myself, being a preacher, being a pastor, and financial planners are much like pastors, especially in these days. Same thing that you said a lot of financial planners are doing is the same thing that I think we are doing as pastors. We're setting people up for failure. We are talking too much about prosperity. We are talking too much about what God has for you and what God is going to do for you. And we are giving them the pie in the sky that everything is going to be okay. And that is a shaky foundation. That is a foundation that is built upon sand, because Scripture tells us that Jesus said in the book of Luke that you are going to have trouble in this world. You know what I'm saying? But don't worry about it because I've overcome the world. So, but what that means is that you're going to see shaky times. You're going to see trouble come up. You're going to get presidents like Trump in 2016. You're going to get President Trump come back, you know what I'm saying, in 2024, right? You're going to have financial downturns. You're going to have cancer diagnosis. You're going to have your children getting sick. You're going to have death that comes in your family. You're going to have some times where you have bouts with depression because of things that weren't even your fault, but just things that you're surrounded by. But how firm is your faith in God during that time? Do you have a plan with God on how you worship each and every day? How do you pray? How do you speak to God? How do you address the adversities that come in life? You're married and husband and wives together, but then one of them has something going on, and then now they treat their wife don't treat their wife right in the house. Then the wife, how do you fight through that? Because you took the covenant and said that you would be with them for richer or for poor, you know what I'm saying, in good health and bad health, you know, no matter what the ups and downs are. So as ministers of the gospel, we too have to make sure that we give the people, don't build them up on just optimism. Now, we do know that God is a God that is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can think or ask. But the thing is, you need to know that you're going to have to ask for some things to take place. And in doing that, you're going to have faith that God can change the situation, but understand that there are going to be some adverse situations that you're going to face, that every day as in the old church, you know, they talk about every day ain't gonna be howdy. You know what I'm saying? That it's not gonna be all good each and every day. Every day is not gonna be a good morning, but I'm still going to be grateful because I know that God is there with me. So the way that we mitigate risk in ministry is just continue to have faith in God, and we're gonna dive a little deeper when we come back from this commercial. Welcome back to Closing the Gap Podcast, the truth about Black wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our founder of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. And we've been talking, Will, about getting this good foundation. Mitigating these risks would be the key word that we want the people to take with them from this episode as you tune in to 94.9 FM and B94.9, and as you watch us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast streaming. Mitigation is the key. How can we lessen the blow of what's going on? We cannot control what Donald Trump is doing. We cannot control every single aspect of our lives, but we do have some control if we put a plan in place. We don't necessarily know how cancer comes. We don't know how different health challenges come in our bodies, but if we have a plan on how we're going to die, if we're willing to go to the doctor and get the checkups, then we'll be better off. We don't have full control over our finances, right? We can get a job and we can begin to work, but what we can do is mitigate the effects by coming to Hamilton Wealth Advisors and sitting down and gathering a plan to move forward. So what we want you all to remember is lessen the blow. How can you mitigate what is going on in society right now? As I shared just a moment ago in that scripture in Isaiah gave that caution about the unjust ruler that he was facing and said, woe unto them, because he says that they take away the right from the poor people. They make widows their prey, and they rob the fatherless, meaning that they take from those that are less fortunate instead of taking care of them. And he goes on in that scripture, Will, and says that the hand of the Lord is going to be outstretched still, meaning that he is going to cover his people, but then yet still hold these people accountable that are doing these wrongs in society. And so when we think about these things, right, from our vantage point, what we just shared is that we have a greater responsibility to take care of the people, but the people, they're going to have to take their responsibility and accountability themselves.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to find the right financial advisor to give you the right advice. You are going to have to connect yourself with the right church to get the right advice. And you know what the issue is that we have a lot of times?
Mm-hmm.
We like sugar too much.
Man.
We like to heap up for ourselves our own advice. We want what we want, and we don't want what we need. And too many times, what I've seen is from the church side, and I'm on a soapbox for a minute. I didn't mean to get on this soapbox, but we got a plan, and I'm gonna be here and off the plan. I'm gonna be off the plan for a minute. We have in our society people that only want to hear what they want to hear. And then also for us as preachers and pastors, sometimes we desire to have people in the pews, so we just desire to feed them what they want to hear too much. And what I do and what you do is we are striving not to do that. You know, we have, what we want to tell you all is we take it serious, our responsibility, number one, to God, because God has called me to be a preacher, and God has called Wilbert to be a financial advisor. And first and foremost, we believe that it is our duty to be honorable to God to give you the truth. That's why it's Closing the Gap podcast, the truth about black wealth. Now, we know that we don't get everything right. We are not perfect. But we're striving toward perfection. And that's why we come on each week to try to give you truth, because we want you to strive for perfection as well. And when we say strive for perfection, that means that it's possible, because we serve a perfect God. We serve a God that can do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can think or ask. But what we have to realize is this: what are you thinking about? Because that scripture says he can do above what you think and you ask. So first of all, you're only going to ask for the types of things that you're thinking about. And so when we come on this show, we're trying to transform your mind to help you think differently, or think about some things that you may not have thought about, to give you some information that will prick your heart and say, hey, you know what? I may not go see Reverend Richardson at his church, or I may not go see Will at his financial advisement company, but I'm going to go seek out the information that I need to mitigate the risks that are going on in my life.
Absolutely.
Mitigate the risk financially and mitigate the risk spiritually. Because first and foremost, everything that happens in your life is spiritual. Everything comes from God. We are made of God. God is the one that has supplied us with what we have. And so that's why that text says he can do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can think or ask, right? But in order to ask for the right things, you have to be thinking the right way.
Yeah. You know what's ironic? I have a saying: if somebody's around me, they tell me they don't have no problems, and I don't want them around me.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody that's chasing after Christ is gonna have some problems. It's gonna have some challenges. It's gonna have some trials and tribulations, because that's how God grow you. See, he can't grow you without taking you through some things. Like I say, if I'm in the weight room and I'm trying to get stronger, I got to have some growing pains. It's going, that I'm not getting stronger until that muscle's getting tore down so it can be rebuilt the right way. So I'm always looking around and saying, okay, well, first, man, I don't have no problems. I never have any issues. Then the devil must already got you. And a lot of times, you find in some of our churches that there's no change happening because the devil already got them. They prosperity preaching. And I don't like this because hate is a strong word, but I feel like that is definitely overtaking our community.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely turned me off from a lot of different churches and a lot of different pastors, because, there's nothing wrong with, letting people see light at the end of the tunnel from time to time. But until you tell them, you got to address your sin first.
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect the reward when you ain't addressed the sin that's keeping you away from the reward. So if you go keep sinning, then guess what? That reward it's going to stay way over there. You're never going to get closer to the reward if you don't address the sin. So, we have to do a better job in calling a spade a spade. We have to be, speak truth to power. I have a motto saying, if I ain't growing, I'm going. So in order for me to grow, I got to get told the truth, because like I say, I'm not perfect. I have things that I need to work on. I have areas that I can improve upon. Learning to be more open-minded, learning to be, more patient, learning to be, more kind with my words from time to time, and understanding that there may be a better way to say or execute a certain thing aside from the way that maybe I've learned to handle certain things. So we all have, areas that we can grow in and areas that we can be challenged in, but our community has become a community that doesn't like to be challenged, and that comes from, I think, our family dynamics, deteriorating to a certain extent. Accountability has dropped off. You see, there's kids have less accountability. Parents want less accountability over their kids, and all these things that are going on. And you got to answer, where does that come from? Mm-hmm. It used to be a time when, we had to learn what those sins were. Mm-hmm. We had to learn them 10 commandments. We had to learn what to do and what not to do. Well, nowadays, think about how many times, think about if you ask a kid what the 10 commandments are, if they've ever had to memorize that before. They never had to think about those things. We used to have to go to Bible study back in the day, at vacation Bible school. You had to memorize. And you wonder why people say what's in you going to come back out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he only won't depart from it, I had enough that was put in me that I'm thankful was able to come back out of me when it needed to come back out of me. Because if I didn't have it in me, who knows where I would be right now.
Right.
So that's where, our churches have to be, and our pastors have to be more accountable and not be so attracted to the flash. And I think, unfortunately, our world has changed. Social media has changed our world. And, everything's a feel-good story now. Instead of let's addressing the facts, let's addressing the truth about the situation. Yes, we are our own worst enemies a lot of times. Yes, we can do a better job of supporting each other. Yes, I can do a better job of supporting myself in situations where, I can be a little easier on myself, so to speak. And I'm my own worst critic. So we have to get better, but we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. We have to be more comfortable addressing the truth. We have to have people in leadership who are courageous enough to address the truth, regardless of what the outcome may bring. See, I tell clients when I meet with them all the time, I say, look, I made one promise to you. If I can't help you, I ain't gonna hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can make that promise to them because I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you what God told me to tell you, not what I know you want to hear.
Right.
Because if I tell you what you want to hear, you want to hear how good things are going to be all the time. You don't want to hear that. You know what? You have some danger around the corner if you don't readjust this portfolio. If you don't diversify out of this opportunity and move some more over here, you're going to have some murky waters. You're going to have some trouble when the market starts to shift a little bit and you too tech heavy right now in your portfolio, and all of a sudden tech takes a hit. You don't want to hear that right now because you want to hear all about the great investments in OpenAI and Microsoft and Google, because that's what everybody's talking about. You want to talk about the money that's being poured into AI by Saudi Arabia that they committed to the U.S. government, give $600 billion, and Trump asking for $1 trillion, as a joke. I'm like, you want to talk about that, but how many of you should actually be invested in that at this particular point in time? So they don't want to have a conversation of saying, when a gentleman comes in my office and wants to talk to me about investing, and I tell him, well, how much life insurance you got to make sure you protect your family in case you don't make it to retirement? See, that's the conversation, though. They don't want to have that conversation.
Very uncomfortable.
It gets uncomfortable because it's not what we want to hear. And all of us have an area of life where we don't want to be attacked on. All of us have something, an area that we fall short, an area that we can improve upon. And none of us wants to be attacked because we're all sensitive about something. We all got a little bit of insecurity about something, and we don't want that thing addressed. But whatever you are insecure about, it's probably going to be the one thing that if you can tackle that issue, it's probably what's going to set you free to see the growth in your life that you want to have.
Yeah. That thing right there is the place where difference resides, right? Is in that spot, and that's where your growth is. Your growth is in that breaking point. It's in that shell that you have put around yourself. It's like a seed. Every seed has a shell around it. But in order to grow, it has to go through the pain of being buried in the dirt and then breaking through that shell and sprouting out, right? And so if we are able to really face ourselves in that way, and that's what we have to realize, is that when you have a God like we have that loves you unconditionally, God wants you to face that, right? That issue. That's what God wants you to do. That's why we are talking about it, because we are holding ourselves accountable, first and foremost, to do that and to strive to do it better. And then also we are telling you all to do it because we love you. We want to see you grow. We want to see you prosper. Now, that word prosperity sometimes gets a bad rap. And even though I'm saying prosperity preaching and all of those things like that, what you have to first realize is this: I am a pastor and I am on a financial podcast right now, right? And we're talking about making financial plans. So I don't want anybody to get it twisted as though I don't want everybody to prosper, nor does God want you to prosper. God does want you to prosper, right? Scripture speaks to that he, above all things, he desires that you will prosper and be in good health, right? But in order to prosper and in order to be in good health, you have to take accountability and responsibility for your actions. You can't get into prosperity if you don't count the cost and put together a plan. if you don't write the vision and make it plain and stick to it. God laid out a plan for his people to be prosperous, right? He gave Adam and Eve a plan. Well, when they were in the Garden of Eden. Then after they went against that plan, he gave them another plan that still allowed them to prosper, right? You go to the book of Judges, and when the people were just doing whatever they wanted to do, and then they cried out for a king, God gave the people a king, and then after that, he came up with a plan even for the king, where the people would still prosper. And then you come to the New Testament, he gave us Jesus, and Jesus was the ultimate plan so that we can prosper. But in all of those plans for prosperity that God gave, it goes back to what you said, Will, that you had to identify your sin, you had to face that, and then God would then give you a renewal of a new plan. When Adam and Eve had the original plan for prosperity, and then they went against it, then when God came down, talking to them, they had to admit, okay, God, yeah, we messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we sinned.
Yes.
And God said, okay, yeah, you sinned. So now I'm going to give you a punishment, but then even in the punishment, I'm going to prosper you, right? And too many times we are afraid of the slight amount of punishment to get the prosperity. And we fool ourselves to think that when we don't address it, that we're actually doing better. But we're actually harming ourselves even more and more.
Crazy. The opportunity is in the punishment.
That's
Opportunity in the punishment.
That's what I gotta preach.
Hey, rest is a word.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's opportunity to punishment, but we don't want to face that punishment. You know, we don't want to give up certain things. We want to have our cake and eat it too. We want to think, well, maybe if I give up a little bit of this, he'll give me a little bit more of that. And God is saying, look, until you change that one thing you know you need to change, you're not going to move to where you want to go. The opportunity is in the punishment. You got to make the commitment. And God is giving you the grace and actually the ability to almost be selfish within that. He's saying, look, I'm giving you everything that you want. All I'm asking is you to just do this one thing, and you can be selfish everywhere. You know, it's kind of like what I do with my sons. I give you the ability to be selfish. I give you the ability to be the best you can be. That's really what God is asking us to do. God is saying, everything I've laid out in front of you is so you can be the best you can be, so you can get the greatest gift that you ever got.
Yeah.
We basically saying that, you know what? The gift that I can give myself is better than the gift that you can give me. That's basically what we're saying. When you think about it, it's like, man, does that make any sense? No. Well, I know the gifts that God can give will far exceed and supersede anything that I could give myself. But that's really what we're doing. We banking on ourselves more than we're banking on God, and we can't compare. We can't comprehend. He's already told you, I will open up a window and pour you out a blessing that you ain't got room enough to receive. You know, so if he's told us that, we can't open up no windows. We can't pour out no blessings. And I think if we have that understanding, and if we actually thought about how many people would benefit from the blessings that God would give us. So that's what excites me about it. What keeps me on track and keeps me focused and keeps me going and keeps me energized is if I keep chasing after him and he reveals and blesses me with the things that he's already shown me, the sheer number of people that are going to benefit from those blessings is what keeps me going on an everyday basis. You know, being able to touch people I never come into contact with. That's my personal motto in life is I want to touch and change the lives of people that I would never meet. You know, that's legacy. You know, that's what life is about. It's not about how much money you can collect, because money's going to come and go. You know, our financial system is going to change over time. It's going to always be evolving. You know, for beginning of time, they was using gold and silver coins. Now we got dollars. Now it's, you know, things are headed towards crypto. And who knows what they'll be in 50, 100, 200 years from now. But what won't change, what will always be around, is legacy. Is how many people did you impact in a positive way? How many people can you be a blessing to that can pass on and be a blessing to somebody else. So for me, you know, that's what drives me, and that's what I want to drive the people around me. Because I think if we had more people in our community that understood we're all blessed to be a blessing, that I'm seeking after God so he can make me the best I could possibly be, not just for me, but for the people that I can come in contact with and the people that they come in contact with, because we never know who we can inspire. I've been inspired in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people. But first and foremost, I've been inspired by God.
Yeah.
And God continues to inspire me and renew me on an ongoing basis. And we want to use this platform to inspire the people that come under the sound of our voice, not just for their own personal gain, but to be a blessing to those they've never come in contact with. See you next time.